Welcome into Spotlight on Kansas City Sports here on Sports TV Plus. Hopefully you're watching us on that True TV Plus app. You can download it, take it with you wherever you go. Sports.tv, Carbon TV, and Watchy throughout the great state of Maryland on all the cable systems. Gerald, Bentley here, joined by Keegan Russell from the Kansas City Sports Authorities. You can hear Keegan and Christopher on the KC Sports Authority. Catch them on YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Keegan, good to have you back in. I was away for a week attending WrestleMania in Las Vegas, so it's good to get back into the mix with Kansas City sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Big week out here. NFL draft, baseball's in full swing. Yeah. Soccer season's picking up. There's a lot going on in the Metro.
Oh, there absolutely is. And, I had a chance to go catch the Royals. They had a brutal road trip while I was in Vegas. I think I bet on the Royals to cover and win like 4 straight days and lost each time. Well, they got Seth Lugo. They're going to win. They got Cole Reagans. They got this one. And no, just no hitting. If you take a look, as we sit right now, and today they picked up a few hits. They got 3 runs in as they are playing the Rays at beautiful Steinbrenner Field, the minor league park that the Rays are playing in this year. Not exactly lighting it up. The Royals come into this game with an OPS, on base plus slugging percentage, of .615. Now, granted, it's a long season, and I got a little sound from Bobby Witt Jr. and Jonathan India highlighting that it's a long season. But if the season were to end today, to use a little football cliche, the Royals would have the second worst OPS of a playoff team in the modern history of baseball. So second worst at .615 of a playoff team since before they started looking at OPS as a stat. Offense has been just brutal. And let's listen to the players too and get their take, and then we'll diagnose it and see what you think, because baseball is a super long season. I used to cover back then they were the Cleveland Indians, covered them on a daily basis. It's a grind. It's a long time, and that's covering them, not playing. Here's Bobby Witt Jr., who's one of the few Royals that has been hitting. Great hitting streak going for Bobby. Here, he's
officially up to 20 games now.
Yeah, got one today, talking about the process.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been incredible. It's one of those things where you got pretty much 5 aces on the staff, and so it's a lot of fun to play defense behind it.
And he was saying, we got this great pitching, and I just go out there. It's fun to play. It's part of the game. It's great. Also said, they built off the wins of that homestand. They were 5-1 on the homestand. Really just did what they did last year, too, beat up the bad teams. Yeah. They lost that end game to the Astros, but win the Astros series, sweep the Rockies. Bobby talking briefly about getting those wins.
Yeah, that's all you can do. That's what you do. Every day you build from the good and learn from the bad and go forward from there.
Stop if you've heard enough baseball philosophy. That's kind of how it goes, right? Jonathan India talking about picking it up. We're getting better. We're getting our groove.
Yeah, definitely. We got back on track. The pitchers, did amazing this week for us. Offense had some timely hitting, and we're all still building. But yeah, today was a tough one, but it's baseball. They got us today.
It's baseball. It's baseball. We're getting back.
All the cliches right there.
And here's a little bit more lengthy take with Jonathan India, and then we'll get back and kind of break down what they're saying and put it into a little context with the stats.
Yeah, I kind of went back to my toe tap that I've had for a while, just to get my rhythm back and my feel back with the bat. Had a decent day today, felt good at the plate. But yeah, I'm just trying to work every day and control what I can control, and that's it.
You guys feel like you got a chance every game because of the way these starting pitchers have been coming into the game? They had more innings pitched than any other starting staffs in the entire major leagues.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they go out there and compete, and they prepare, and you can see it, and it just keeps us in the game in every game. So it's good to see that our pitchers are doing their job and the offense will get going.
What gives you confidence about that, saying that the offense will get going there?
Just by the individuals we have on this team, I can tell everyone really wants it. They work hard. No one really gives up on themselves. They're always trying to figure it out, and we just keep pushing. So that's the bottom line.
Do you think it just takes a game or two to get rolling momentum-wise? Because it is early in the season.
Yeah.
A couple big games, and the stats are right where they should be.
Right. I mean, yeah, it definitely maybe one or two, but baseball's such a marathon. We just got to keep playing every day and prepare for that day. And not worry about tomorrow. So yeah, you just stay in the present and you just keep going.
What did you see on that?
Stay in the present, keep going, stay on track.
One game at a time.
One game at a time. And that's tried and true. That's baseball. And I enjoy talking to Bobby Witt Jr. I like talking to Jonathan India. They're really good. I mean, obviously, Bobby Witt Jr., arguably the second or the best player in Major League Baseball. Jonathan India, a proven high-end Major League player. And they talk like baseball players talk because it's bred in. Hey, it's a long season. It's a grind. It's going to take a while. We're going to get going. They do win today. They bounce back from that Astros win, get a 3-1 win over the Rays. Michael Lorenzen getting a quality start and a win. 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 run. It was earned. He's been good. He's been great. Urseg, Estevez slammed the door shut, so they get another win. That evens them up at 15-15. But is that what we want to see? Are you concerned about the offense? Do you think they need to do something to change it? Because they got to lift it up. They got to get that OPS up to about 700. Just put a little context to that stat if you're not a big baseball stats person. 700 is like the line for being a starter. 800, you're good. 900, you're an all-star. 1,000, you're amazing. Yeah. And that's kind of how it breaks down. What do you think? Does a change need to come, or are they right just saying, hey, stay the course and we're going to be okay?
I think to a degree there is some concern. I think the concerns are the ones we pretty much had coming into the season. Outfield production and needing to see Michael Massey be a consistent 4, 5, 6, 7 hitter, wherever you want to slot him in there. And those two things just really haven't happened much. I mean, Bobby's been Bobby doing his thing, batting over 300. Maikel Garcia's been off to a really solid start offensively. He's getting it done. Salvi tends to start the season off slow and then starts to heat up, so I'm not really worried about him. India, even though he hasn't gotten as many hits now the last week or so, he has been better. He's still finding ways to get on base. So I guess my concern level is not super high. But you definitely, I mean, Chris and I talked about in our episode this week too, this team has to find a way to score 4 runs a game. Majority of the games they're losing, it's because they're not getting to 4 runs, despite the fact that they probably have one of the 5 best rotations in all of baseball, not just the American League. Yeah. They've got one of the probably 5 to 7 best bullpens. And despite all that, they still 15-15. They're in the bottom third in average runs scored per game. They've got one of the worst batting averages, one of the worst OPS, like you said. They only have 13 home runs on the season.
Yeah, 13 home runs, worst in the league in home runs.
Worst, yeah. And so there's some concern there, but baseball's a marathon. It's a grind. There's ups and downs. There's a roller coaster to it. I'm not too concerned. We've already seen JJ make a move relatively quick with pushing Melendez down, and that hasn't helped him, unfortunately.
He's hitting down there. If you haven't checked, MJ Melendez is hitting 082.
It's bad. It's almost worse than that is.
It's time to go back to the old swing. The new swing doesn't work.
Yeah, something's not working there. So I guess I'm not as concerned because I think JJ has a really good pulse on this team. So I think there will be some moves. Chris and I try to talk about it. There's not a lot of moves that can be made right now. There's just not that many guys on the market.
That's too early.
There's way too many teams that are still in it. So unless you're the White Sox or the Rockies, every other team is still fighting for a playoff spot this early on. And so there's not really much change that's going to happen. So you really just need the guys to produce in-house. So Salvi's got to get better. He's got to heat up, which I think he will. Drew Waters is looking pretty solid in the
That's a good
first
sign,
week and a
yeah.
half he's had up here. So hopefully that continues. But you need one game a week out of Hunter Renfrow. You need 2 or 3 games a week out of Michael Massey. And then whatever Kyle Isbell gives you, which I think has been just fine. Vinny's the one that I'd start paying a little closer attention to.
It's the
His
one that hurts.
strikeout rate is high this year. He is striking out very high compared to what he has been the last 2 years. So something's a little up there. But again, baseball, you could look at the standings. They could go bad for 1 week, and all it takes is a 6-1 stretch like they're in right now, and you're right back in it. So Vinny's the only one I'm kind of concerned about because this is below what we've come to expect from him, and I think he'll break out of it. He probably will. The lack of home runs is concerning, but again, I think as the weather heats up, Bobby gets going, Salvi gets going, I think we'll get there. But there's a still very strong chance sometime over the next 6 to 8 weeks, the conversation intensifies on finding outfield production help. Unfortunately, there's just not many options. And no, Jack Caglianone's not going to get up here quick enough to be the solution. He might, but probably not quick enough. So we got to hope Drew Waters can get it done, or Darwin Bronco once a week gives you a little spark. But outside of that, I'm not too concerned. As long as the pitching's there, they're going to be in just about every series. Defense has taken a little bit of a step back. I think, to me, the next question I really have as far as this roster construction is finding a place for Jonathan India and being consistent with it. Ideally, he's your DH and not playing the field, but the way this is going right now, they, for whatever reason, don't want to DH him. They're splitting him at third, second, and left, and there's definitely a drop-off in left field for sure. We saw that the other night. Even in a win, he still didn't play great. But there's such a drop-off between him and Garcia at third or second and Massey that you don't really want to put him in the infield either. So I think there's some concern there, but it's not I don't think it's costing them games, so it might not be that big of a deal so far.
I think he's looked better at third. That's his normal position. And I actually liked seeing Mikkel out in the outfield. I'd be okay with that. And when we went and sat in the post-game press conference at Kauffman Stadium not that long ago, I did ask Matt Quadrero, hey, are you looking at more positional flexibility from Mikkel Garcia? And he said, yeah, he's going to be out there more. He's going to be out in the outfield. I'd like to see that because, I agree with you. Jonathan India doesn't look terribly comfortable out there, and you didn't get him to be a average at best left fielder. You got him to be an above average leadoff hitter. Let him play where he's comfortable. And if it's third base, great. If it's DH, well, we may have fielded the single least qualified designated hitter. This is going to be an exaggerated statement because I'm sure there's been plenty of bad DHs in the DH era in running Kevin Biggio out there as their DH.
Playing the field.
He's a utility infielder, a soft hitting utility infielder. That's a failure, not of JJ Piccolo, not of Matt Quatrero. That's a failure of the Royals organization in the previous generation, the Dayton Moore era, post World Series, not getting somebody drafted that, okay, you can't play the field. Fine. At least you can hit 230 and rake out 20 home runs because that's okay. We'll take that. And if MJ Melendez could have found where he finished last year, he was real close to being a minimally acceptable DH because he ended up at like 220 and 17. Just a little more average, a couple more home runs. Hey, you're okay. Play here, and at least we'll have you run into a home run occasionally, and that's good. But the fact that we don't have that guy, Gavin Cross, you're guilty as well, that could come up and fill that position, that's a huge hole. And it's hard to buy outfielders. You really need to develop them.
Yeah, and that was a question I raised to a friend of mine on another podcast, Royals podcast. I asked him, is like, hey, what is up with the Royals not being able to develop an outfield bat in the last 10, 12 years? And so we sat there and kind of went through the numbers, and really the best one we could come up with that was an in-house grown talent was probably Paulo Orlando, and that was for 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we have really, and I guess if you want to call Whit Merrifield, I know he transitioned to the outfield some too, and he was a good bat, but we really haven't been able to develop a quality outfield bat option that's a true outfielder, not a guy that's converted out there. And you have to really go all the way back to like Lorenzo Cain, which you really can't take credit for because he was already on
Yeah,
that
we traded.
trajectory in Milwaukee. So to me,
Traded a
that's
Cy
that's
Young
a
pitcher
that's a
for him,
bigger question mark. There is what do we got to do? Because I look around the league and I go, the Astros always figure out how to develop an outfielder. Doesn't matter who it is. The Cardinals develop so many of them that they trade them all away the first time they get to the majors and watch all
Mhm.
that talent leave. So there's teams out there that figure it out, and the Royals, for whatever reason, can't. Now, I think baseball is very finicky. There's so many guys that go in the draft, and the success rate on a prospect is incredibly low, all things considered. So they're not the only team that struggles with it. But
No.
when you can't sit here and you can count on one hand or less how many outfielders they have truly developed at the minor league level, that's a concern, and that's something that's got to get better because they can't win all these games 2-1. You might be able to scrape out a game or two in a series, but if you look at baseball across the league this year, I think the average run production is 4.5 runs per game, and the
Mhm.
teams that are sitting at the top are averaging close to 6. I mean, look at Detroit this year; they're a bunch of young guys that can hit the ball all over the lineup 1 through 9, and they're averaging close to 6 runs a game, and they look like one of the better teams in the American League so far. And the
Oh,
Royals
they
just
very
don't
much
have
do,
that
yeah.
offensive production. Again, am I that worried? No, because I do think they have the pieces. If Michael Massey doesn't have a 2-week stretch where he's batting under 150, if Salvi heats up a little bit here and Vinny's not striking out 30% of the time, I think we're fine. So not major cause for concern yet, but there's definitely got to be you need one outfielder to step up because right now the lineup is not deep at all, and the fact that Biggio's playing a DH spot because they don't want to play Mark Canha every day, who's probably deserving of more time, but he is really good against lefties, and you want to see him in there. You don't want him against as many righties. So somebody else has to step up. Drew Wars is the guy right now. Can he maintain that? Can he
He
sustain
has
it?
been doing
That's
it
the
since he
question.
came.
Because that was
Yeah.
the question in the last 2 years with him is he has a little pop of excitement, and then after 2 or 3 weeks, it's right back into the funk of striking out all the time. But so far, he's taken advantage of it. You hope to see that continue because you need somebody in the outfield to pick it up, or you're going to have to give away some pieces to go get some. Because unfortunately, on the trade market, there's not a lot out there, and the guys that are probably going to be available, it's going to cost you a little bit.
Yeah, well, right now, the best outfielder that's available, here's a guy who we all remember, Andrew Benintendi. He's actually back to hitting with the White Sox. And here, the Royals did try to buy an outfielder during free agency. They made a significant offer to Baltimore Orioles, basically DH, right? I mean, he can waddle around the outfield, but essentially he's a DH. Anthony Santander. If you're thinking, man, it would have been better if they just signed Santander, we would have been okay. Yeah, no.
He's been
So
bad.
far for the Blue Jays in a hitter's stadium, Santander is banging it away at a 179 clip and a 261 batting average. He would be tied for the Royals lead in home runs, though, with
Yeah.
3. But just showing that's not necessarily the answer. And they paid Santander. He got a 3-year
And he's
contract.
not the only one. Just about every outfield guy they looked at. I mean, Jurickson Profar suspended half the year,
Out
so you don't know
suspended
what you'll
for
get after that. Max Kepler's the one that I think got away. I really do think the Royals were in on him, and I think they had a shot at the 6 to 7 million a year, and then Philly offers 10 million plus. He was going to go to Philly, but he's the one outfielder that I think felt very realistic as an offseason addition that I think we should have gotten. But outside of him, every other guy that they were linked to has been off to just as bad a
brutal.
start to the season as Hunter Renfroe has had.
And to be fair to Vinny, he is coming back from a hand injury. Baseball is swinging a bat. I mean, it does involve your hands quite a bit. So let's give him a little bit of a break because he does need some time to get into the groove. He obviously wasn't healthy when he came back for the playoffs. That was just because it was either him or Yuri Gurriel, and we know Yuri wasn't hitting anything, so had to try something since you made it. Taking a look before we move on to the Chiefs, taking a look at Baseball Reference. because they have a statistical projection of where the teams will end the season right now. So not if the season ended today.
Sure.
They're playing the games off and statistically modeling them because baseball is the sport that loves their stats. They started the analytics. According to Baseball Reference, the Royals will finish the season at 84-78. If you could lock that in today, 84-78, and you get a wild card for the second straight year, you say yes, I'm in.
I think because you said if it also guarantees wild card, yes. I don't know if 84 gets you into the wild card, but yes, if you can guarantee me 84 locks in a wild card, I'm fine with that. I'd
Yeah,
completely take it because I would rather be
they
in the playoffs than not be in the playoffs.
Yeah, they project him finishing with 84 wins and facing the Seattle Mariners in the wild card round.
Yeah, I'd take it.
The best they think the Royals will do, which I don't see this happening. They need to get real hot. 94-68.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to get clipping because
Where are you stealing
that
those games
means
on the schedule?
yeah, and it's not that, but I mean you're gonna need to just run the table with the White Sox and really bludgeon the bad teams and then get just a little bit above 500 against the good teams. They
Yeah,
feed
because the month of July they have every team they face in July outside of the Marlins are probably a playoff contending team.
Mhm.
So that's asking for a lot to get to 94 wins. I
Yeah,
guess it's
94
possible.
and 68. They have the Tigers finishing at a best of 106 and 56. Also going to be
Wow.
very challenging because while the Royals have had almost all winning teams, the Tigers have kind of been graced by the schedule a little bit. So they'll probably come down a little bit. The Royals will probably come up a little bit. Worst case scenario for the Royals, which in years past wouldn't have been that bad. Major League Baseball Reference has them coming in at 75-87. I don't see that happening because I think the pitching's too good. And
Yeah,
I
pitching's too
agree.
good.
I think
Yeah.
come on.
They can win enough games 2-1, 3-2 to get at least to 80.
Now, just to go back, because baseball is a sport that loves history. At what point, if the hitting doesn't turn it up, do you bring in a second hitting coach or a temporary hitting coach or a special consultant like they did with George Brett back in 2014?
If there's more than 2 or 3 guys that are still struggling, maybe. I don't think there's much of a precedent that we would see that with this coaching staff. But now Q is very big in analytics. So if the analytics are where they're supposed to be and the guys aren't producing, I could see maybe just a change of influence coming in. But I think it's going to be more on the player side. I think they feel very confident these guys are capable and they just need to see it done. Now, if we are still sitting here in 4 weeks and we're still as a team performing on the offensive side to where we've been right now, then the concern level is definitely 2 point. And I think I trust JJ to get that done. But I would be a little surprised if it was on the hitting side because I don't think those analytic guys really want to mess with much influence. They
Yeah,
don't want to mess with
because
much
they
influence.
are going to look, they have been hitting into a little bit of bad luck. If you look at, and I didn't even know this was a stat, expected slugging percentage.
Expected.
So, like the soccer stat, expected goals, they're actually tracking the flight paths of the balls and saying, okay, that should have been a double. And it ended up being an out, just unlucky.
Yeah.
Expected slugging percentage, the Royals are just a little bit above average at 13th in the league, and they're 11th in the league at hard hit percentage. So a little bit they've
There's a
been
stat the
unlucky, so
analytics
maybe
guys
that'll
love.
turn around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably 3 or 4 more wins right there.
Well, sure. Yeah, because a couple of hits, because like you said, their pitching is keeping them
Well,
in
yeah,
the
and
game.
Jonathan
You
India,
get a
like he's
couple
one I
of
can
extra
think of.
hits, you're there.
Indy is always that guy that I can think of in my mind that has these long fly ball outs that in some stadiums there's definitely gone, or if there's a little bit more of a gap, it drops. So yeah, I definitely see some of that. That's I mean, baseball guys love that. When you're hitting the ball hard, they know that baseball's going to come and go. So you're going to go through a stretch
Hmm.
where you're unlucky, and then that luck's going to hit, and you're going to go on a 2 week stretch where you're just hitting the snot off of it. So hopefully that's this stretch right now because they do have a favorable schedule over the next 2 weeks, including the stand they're on right now. They've got favorable pitching
Yeah.
matchups. And even though Baltimore has had a really bad season, they still have a lot of offensive firepower, but their pitching's been a mess this year too. So you've got some opportunity over the next 10, 12 days to boost the win column and get the bats going. And I think if they do get the bats going, I mean, it's hitting is contagious. We've seen that plenty of times in baseball,
Hmm.
that one or two guys start to get going and that third guy gets going, and then the guys at the bottom of the lineup turn the lineup back over. So it's definitely contagious. And I think they're probably 2 or 3 series away from really breaking through if they can keep up what they're doing currently. If they do that, then you're neck and neck with Detroit. I like to think Detroit's going to come back to average a little bit. They've got so many young guys that I just don't know if they can keep it up consistently. And I don't know if I trust the depth of they've got 2 really good pitchers, but I don't know if I trust the depth of that lineup necessarily long term.
Yeah, I mean, if you take 3 games away, you're 15-14, and you're right there. So it
Yeah.
is to go back to the baseball cliche we started with. It's early.
Yeah.
It's just you go in there and you just want to. Hey, what? Come on! What are we doing? How do we get the hitting going? What do we
Win
do? What do we
now.
do?
Win
What do we
now.
do? And
Hit now, win now.
as a commentator, it's frustrating when the answer back is, "Oh, it's a process. It's a long game.
Yeah.
It's a grind." And I know that because, like I said, I mean, I covered a really, really good Indians team every game for years, and it was, oh, yeah, it's baseball. We're gonna go through it, and it's gonna be ups and downs, and then
Yep.
we're gonna get in there, and it's gonna turn. We're gonna be okay. And if you're used to covering basketball or football, you want to hear, "Let's go! Come on now! Let's go! How do we
Yeah.
change it? What do we do? How do we fix it?
That
Fine."
condensed
You know,
season it's everything's
yeah,
much
you
more.
don't
There's
see.
no urgency in baseball compared to other sports.
No, you're never gonna see a baseball manager screaming at every possession on the sideline like Bill
Yeah.
Self does. It's never going to happen. The players would want to kill you. So it is weird. You have to kind of downshift and adjust yourself
Well,
because
and
you need to
unfortunately for
stay in the mood.
fans live in the here and now, and so when the team plays well, gets to the playoff last year, expectations raise as you would hope
Sure.
for. And so when you're not meeting those expectations instantaneously, baseball's the only sport that you just can't have that mentality with because yeah, you could have a 2 week stretch where you're really bad and then have a 2 week stretch where you're really good and they cancel each other out. You have a 2 week stretch that's really bad in basketball, you really dig yourself a hole. But baseball is just it's a much more relaxing sport that you just have to again let the process work out, sit back and watch, look for the analytics to show you what you're looking for. Again, they weren't scoring a lot of runs because they weren't hitting with guys in scoring position. That's probably going
Yeah.
to come back and they'll figure it out later. Unfortunately, though, for the fan, that means we have to wait. But all it really matters is after the trade deadline that you get hot when it's hot out and come down the
Hmm.
stretch and
And
keep it close.
stay in the peloton, if you want to use another sport analogy. Stay in the scrum, kind of towards the top, and just ride it out
Yeah.
until you get your wave, and you'll be okay. And baseball is a sport that pulls everybody to the middle, with the exception of the two absolutely horrendous teams, the Rockies at 4-24, and the Chris Getz captained as the general manager. Getzy bringing the White Sox in so far at 7-21. They're the exceptions. Everybody else is
Yeah.
in double digits and wins already. So it does kind of pull you together. Well, let's move to a sport where there's a little bit more of a margin between good and bad. The National Football League. Kansas City Chiefs. Let's get your opinion on the draft. I was thrilled with the draft that the Chiefs completed, and I'm perfectly okay with them getting the offensive lineman.
He slid
How do
down.
you feel?
I think there's two ways I've looked at it. There's the questions of concern on some aspects of who they drafted, but there's also a lot of great potential and positional value. Simmons, I thought was fantastic for them. I mean, this was a
Hmm.
guy that he was linked to the Chiefs basically leading all the way up to the draft. The major knee concern there. There is not a team that studied that injury with him more than the Chiefs. They probably met with Josh Simmons more than any other team leading up to the
Yeah,
draft.
from day
And
one.
so they knew he was going to slide there. So I was really okay with that pick there. I thought there was a small chance that maybe they'd go like Luther Burden just to have some more excitement. But you draft a guy that doesn't have to play right away this year because you got Jalen Moore on the left side, you've got Javon Taylor on the right side. But if he
Hmm.
recovers from the knee, and again that's a big if, you've got probably one of the three best tackles in this year's draft. All things considered. So you got to feel really good with that. And if he
Easily.
bounces back even 80% of what he could be, if he can be slightly above average left tackle or switches to right tackle, that's a guy you can probably rely on for the next couple of years. So I feel really good with that. Um, I thought there was really nowhere else to go in the first round except for maybe trading back and letting somebody come up. So with him on the board there, I thought that was perfectly fine. Some people I've talked with, they like the picks, but they don't like where some of these guys were picked at, like Norman Lott. Not a
Hmm.
huge. I mean, most Chiefs reporters out there that I've listened to are not very high on him, and I wonder if maybe he was drafted a round later. Would that mindset be completely different? Because he was probably not the best defensive tackle available at that time in the second round. Alexander was probably the other better one that felt like a better fit, a little bit bigger, better size. But Lott could be interesting if he develops. I think what I saw the way Brett Veach attacked this draft is he wasn't going after star talent necessarily, like you see a lot of general managers do take these big swings. He went after guys that could fill tremendous role potential, like a Norman Lott being
Yeah.
a rotational D tackle, replaces Tershawn Wharton and provides some good pass rush at the defensive tackle position. He goes out there and gets Noel Williams, about where he was projected to go a little bit higher because they traded up and they gave a little bit,
Hmm.
they gave next year's fourth round pickup. I didn't like that, but they go get a guy that's a big playmaker, very disciplined tackler, which we have seen. We talked about this last year too. This Chiefs defense is one of the most disciplined tackling teams in the league, and they went out and got guys that are disciplined in that. So I feel very good top to bottom with the draft. Every guy they picked, none of them really jump off the screen at you and excite you from a name standpoint. I don't think most fans knew who the running back was before they took him. I don't think most fans knew much about the wide receiver before they took him. But they're guys that really fit in a very specific manner the role that Brett Veach wants them to be. So I think when it's all said and done here in 2 or 3 seasons and all these guys get their run time, I think you'll feel really good on the back end. But I think the initial reaction to the average fan probably wasn't all excited because there were a
A
lot of
little
guys that they
underwhelming.
probably felt they could go with. But these are all guys that fulfill potential roles that could play honestly this year. I think Noel Williams will have a big impact this season. Omar Lott's obviously going to have to be a rotational guy because they don't have much depth at D tackle. Simmons, you can kind of bring along slow. And worst case scenario, he beats out Jalen Moore in training camp. I
That's
guess that's not worst case. Worst case scenario is he beats out
no,
Jawan
that's a good
Taylor and you
scenario.
have
And then,
$20 million sitting there you don't know what to do with. But if Simmons
yeah.
beats out one of those guys, you can figure that out later and you feel pretty good with that. Because I think Simmons is because he was a first round pick, is going to have the most expectation on him. And because of that knee injury, which does not have a high success rate of guys returning and playing after. But I don't think the Chiefs would have drafted him if they were that concerned that he wouldn't bounce back. I think Rick Burkholder is probably one of the
Hmm.
best trainers in the league. And if he feels he's good to go, then I would trust him.
Well, and to be fair, the way they generally fix the ACL tear, which if it was an ACL, I don't think anyone would have been concerned at all. If yeah, ACL, it'll be fine. They take the middle third of the patella tendon out to fix the ACL. So it just doesn't seem like it should be that impossible of an injury to
True.
come back from because you literally hurt the patella to fix the
Yeah.
other part of the knee. And I was thinking back, guys who have recovered from torn patella tendons, and the only one that came to mind, referencing our sister channel, Wrestling Spotlight, the icon Sting. He tore his patella tendon and came back to have a 30-year career in
Yeah.
WCW, TNA, WWE, and AEW. So we can look at Sting as being the example of a guy who recovers from a patella tendon surgery. The pick that I was excited about was Jalen Royals because, yeah, I agree with you. I didn't really know about our friend Mr. Norman Lott. That was kind of a surprise, but the fact that they got Jalen Royals where they did, he was being projected by a lot of people as potentially being the Chiefs' first pick in the draft because he had a strong senior ball, ran a 4.4, and had a lot of comparisons to Rashee Rice. I think he could be a big player this year because you're not going to see Rashee Rice for at least, won't know until closer to training camp, but probably at least 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So Jalen Royals being a guy who's a really good yards after catch receiver and a little
He gets
bigger
that
receiver
yak.
at 6'2", 205. He's a
That
good
that was
fit. I
that's
think
what
that's a
made
great
me
pick.
feel better about it because we're used to seeing them draft these 5'9" to 5'11" speedsters, and Royals
Mhm.
has speed, but he's also got a little bit of size. He's kind of got that Sammy Watkins mold, but he's much better. I mean, he's very similar, shape to Rashee Rice, and so if he can come in, even if he doesn't have to play that much early on, but he can develop and learn in the way Rashee Rice did and fulfill some of that. I mean, he's got playmaking ability that if you get him in a little bit of space, he can make some guys miss and get those yards after the catch. So, yeah, that was huge. I mean, he slid I can't remember. Was that a fourth round?
Fourth round pick, yeah.
And he was on a lot of boards a lot higher. So again, I like what the Chiefs did in this. I think Royals was probably one of their top 3 choices at wide receiver in this draft, as a realistic opportunity to draft in probably the second round or later. The one that I'm kind of surprised they didn't go get was probably Isaiah Bond, but nobody has taken him yet. He's still an undrafted free agent. And I know he's got some legal concerns there. But yeah,
Mhm.
I like Royals. I think he's got some interesting dynamic. He could also help in special teams a little bit. And then the running back out of SMU. It's funny. Chris and I were talking last week about running back position. I said, all right, who are the 3 or 4 guys you want them to draft a running back? And so we're doing the typical names that are
Mhm.
names that most
Trevion
fans would know
Henderson.
too. Yeah, all those guys. And then I said, so because we just said all that, they're going to draft a running back that none of the fan base has heard of. He's going to come from a smaller school. And SMU was, Perriman, he was one of the guys that we mentioned to each other that this is probably a guy that they would take late in the 6th or 7th round because he'll be available and it's not the sexy name, but it's a guy that, man, you watch his tape. I had to spend a little bit of time watching some tape on him because I was not as familiar with him, and he's got some speed. He's got some
Yeah.
playmaking ability. He might not be a 3-down back ever for us, but he's got some position versatility. He's got a lot of potential to be a blend of kind of what Tyreek Hill was drafted to be early on as that kind of versatile running back, wide receiver, kickoff return specialist. And then, of course, he developed it to one of the best wide receivers in the league. But this guy's got a lot of burst, a lot of speed. He might not be the 1 or 2 down backs. I think that's still Pacheco's for sure. But they're going to find ways. They're going to find packages to get him in there because that speed alone and that quick first step he's got is fantastic. And I think he's going to give us a lot more edge in the kickoff return and punt return game with his ability to break tackles and his elusiveness.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is our wide receiver, Royals, used to be a running back. And then our
Yep.
running back from SMU, Brashard Smith, used to be a wide receiver. He was a wide receiver for the Miami Hurricanes in 2021 because the guys, they're staying in school for a while now. It helps get them paid. Wide receiver for the Hurricanes, only ran the ball 6 times, caught 14 passes, a couple touchdowns, returned kick. Miami, his second year, ran the ball 3 times, had 33 receptions, and then he switched to running back before transferring to SMU for his final season. Led the team with 1,332 yards on the ground, 5.7 per, 14 rushing touchdowns. So he lit it up in a decent conference in the ACC.
With the
1,097
team we're already familiar with. The
yards
team we're already
overall.
familiar with doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, because and Clark's alma mater, so he watches them.
He sent some tape to Brett Veach
Yeah.
to look at. And I didn't even realize I did this. Brashad Smith, not Brashad Perriman.
Yeah,
When I was
Brashard
watching
Smith,
some
yeah.
tape, one analyst I was listening to said they saw some Brashad Perriman in him. So that's where that thought came from, because he's got the same kind of elusiveness that Perriman had in his prime.
and return kicks. And what they really need, what they've been missing, is Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah.
And he used to be a wide receiver, so he could get out there and get a 15-yard pass. And you know what? Maybe he can be the receiver that we thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire would be. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire just happened to benefit dramatically from having Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson on either side of him, and Joe Burrow throwing the ball. He may not have ever been that good of a receiver. It's just possibly, you and I could have been out there and standing 5 yards from the line of scrimmage, and with those two guys dragging the defense, you're open. Yep. So we'll see. Maybe Brashard Smith's going to be a good fill-in, and he could fill that role, because what I think people don't realize when they drill down and they do these mock drafts, the teams all say, yeah, we draft the best available player. Well, that's not true. No.
Maybe in the first round.
They draft the best player available that fills a need on their team, because it's a different era now. You're very rarely, only the star players stay for a second contract, or the guys who are just guys, just the fill-in. Hey, or just a specialty player, James Winchester. Okay, you're going to keep getting re-signed, but your starting players, you're only giving them that second contract if they're a foundational piece. So your draft picks need to play. It's not like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, where you could just draft the best available players, because it doesn't matter. You're going to have everybody for 7 years. Now you got 4 years, and you got to reshuffle. So these guys need to play. So you may not always see the top names that you think you're going to see in the draft, because they need somebody to play now, especially when you have a quarterback taking a big chunk of the salary cap, a tight end, a center, a guard, and a middle linebacker. So you're paying a bunch of money to positions that aren't really, outside of quarterback, aren't really the big, huge positions that you think all the money is going to go to. So you need to nail these draft picks. That's a huge key. So I think
and that was something I thought coming into this draft.
Going to play.
Yeah. I thought that was something coming into this draft. The Chiefs had a little bit of a luxury in the sense that they didn't have any glaring holes that they had to fulfill from the draft itself. So yes, they could get guys that fit specific roles, which a lot of these guys are. I don't think any of these guys are going to be stars on this team. I think the guy with the highest upside obviously is Simmons, not just being a first round pick, but just because of position value. Sure. But Gelati, we haven't even talked about yet. I mean, that guy's got he's got one of the hardest working motors on tape that I saw from some draft coverage this year, of a guy that's maybe not one of the 5-10 best pass rushers in this draft, but his motor, his athleticism, and his work ethic is going to translate into the NFL. And he's a guy, he might not ever be a double-digit sack guy, but you can see how he could have a role in this team this year in situational pass rushing attempts and push the guys ahead of him, like a guy like FAU who's coming into third year now and has a lot of pressure to see if he's going to get a second contract or if he can even live up to the hype of being a first-round pick. So I really like what they did. I think the only necessarily question mark for this upcoming season from a guy that you might not see much is the linebacker out of Oregon. He definitely, to me, screams special teams guy. And I know, some of the Chief scouts spoke highly of him as a guy that has a lot more potential than he gets credit for. He played a ton of snaps at Oregon, being the green dot linebacker, so he's certainly capable of leading a defense. But he probably is the only guy that you look at in this draft and go, he might not make much impact this season, whereas all these other guys have opportunity to. But him and then, of course, Omar Norman-Lott are probably going to be the two guys that the fan base is going to look at in training camp and go, this guy, like Norman Lott especially, because he wasn't the best defensive tackle available league wide across, other scouts at that moment. And a guy that, didn't play a ton of snaps at Tennessee. Not his fault. That's the way Tennessee plays their defense. But again, he's got a good work ethic and a good motor. So you hope that tenacity he plays with can translate into more snaps per game. But in reality, the 17 snaps he was playing per game, he's not going to see that much more in this Chiefs defensive line rotation
No.
this first
Go
year
hard
anyway.
and get out.
So if he goes hard like that, he's gonna earn more playing time, and I think that'll translate. So he's probably the other guy that Chiefs fans are just gonna be a little bit questionable on, because the tape doesn't show that he's a starter necessarily, but he's got the skill set for it. So yeah, I like this draft top to bottom. Only thing I was disappointed with is that they didn't draft Devin Neal. That was the one pick I was hoping they would do at running back.
Sure.
Devin, he went to a great spot in New Orleans. I think he's going to be a good fit there. They did sign a KU player. They signed Jared Casey for the summer. So looking forward to seeing him at training camp. But yeah, top to bottom, love what they did. Even their undrafted free agent guys they've signed already. They found a couple guys that could be some diamonds in the rough, good practice squad players, guys that could maybe break through over the course of the year. But got to feel pretty good with where they went in this draft.
Absolutely. And they need to fill those spots, like I said, because you can't pay all these starters, especially at positions that aren't premium positions, and you're giving premium money without loading up on some young guys, because otherwise you're going to be dead against the cap every year. So you need to have a little bit of flexibility. Talking on the Chiefs still, another topic that came up during the pre-draft press conference was the stadium talk, as we are now looking at June or July, according to Clark Hunt's press conference, for a decision, which conveniently ties in to the deadline for the star bonds, which are giving either the Chiefs or the Royals. Yeah, purely coincidental. Either the Chiefs or the Royals a 75% paid for stadium. Just say yes. Having spent the week in Las Vegas for WrestleMania and getting to walk around Allegiant Stadium, see the pregame area for, they don't really have tailgating, but they have like a pregame kind of plaza area, very similar to Children's Mercy Park, just a little bit bigger. Getting to see the concession stands, looking around the stadium. I am 100% convinced you need to at least have a dome stadium. Ideally a retractable dome, but you need a dome stadium. It needs to happen. The thing that jumped out at me about Allegiant Stadium is it's very nice for watching the game. It is a very, I don't know what you want to say, utilitarian, industrial, kind of Spartan stadium. I mean, there's not a lot to it. There's tons of concession stands. The seats are good. The scoreboards are really nice. It's a nice stadium. I think it has to be the bare minimum that you do here to be acceptable, because Kansas City fans, if they got Allegiant Stadium as it sits, I don't think they're happy, because it's not that much better of a game day atmosphere than Arrowhead Stadium. It really is.
It's hard to come by too.
It's surprising. I was more impressed from a stadium amenities and the feel with Lincoln Financial Field than I was Allegiant Stadium, and honestly, not even all that close.
I wonder if it's because it's Vegas. They don't feel like they have to do much to get you excited. You're already in Vegas, so they can get you to go do everything else.
Well, yeah, and the real estate's super expensive, so that was probably part of it. It was a $1.7 billion stadium designed by the architecture firm from here in Kansas City. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I don't know.
It still will always crack me up, that image they have from the construction crew planting the Chiefs flag.
Yeah, with the flag being buried, yeah. And it was nice. It was a good stadium. But I don't think that's enough. What do you think, as we're sitting here now, by the Chiefs' own admission, like 2 months away from a decision, because May's coming up? What do you think they decide? I'm thinking
if it were me, I would go to the Legends area, there is so much extra commerce there already to support a full weekend of activity, let alone just game day. I have doubts though, because the Chiefs have not been overly aggressive in their communication strategy in saying they want to leave Arrowhead and relocate to another spot close by. So I wonder how much Clark Hunt has this back and forth heart tug of, my dad built this, I got to keep it here. We got to just redo it here. The Royals will move on. We'll redesign this area to benefit us long term versus the probably the more business realistic mindset of, hey, if we go over here to Lenexa area and get out where all the shopping centers are, where there's a lot of land out there, there's a lot of space they can build whatever the heck they want.
Yeah.
There's just so much extra benefit I see to that from a game day experience to a fan interaction. And if we're being honest, I mean, that's why the Chiefs exist, is for the fans. It's not for anything else other than fan entertainment. And if you
Well,
can
making money.
provide a much, well, yeah, making money, making money on behalf of your fans because they want to
The
be
other stuff's
entertained.
nice. Yeah.
I don't think that means that takes away anything from what Arrowhead's been. Arrowhead is probably one of the
Huh.
4 or 5 best places in all of NFL to have a full experience of a traditional football tailgating day. You probably think of them. You probably think of Green Bay as up there, Buffalo being one of those 3, of course, with the way they tailgate. And you really don't want to get rid of that atmosphere. But this is 50 years of nothing around them. There's nothing there. Jackson County's done nothing to build it up. And so,
Yeah.
from a Chiefs perspective, I don't see why you would want to stay there unless Clark Hunt is okay footing the bill to build all these things around it. And if you come to Kansas, you don't have to. You don't have to do any of
Yeah.
that.
You don't.
And
And
you're going to get a lot of the
you
stuff
don't.
you already need paid for. So I'm all for it. I think it's much more realistic the Chiefs move over there than the Royals would. I still think Sherman's going to find his way to get his downtown stadium. I think that's
Seems to be.
almost a foregone conclusion. Who cares where the spot is at this point now? It's just going to happen. But the Chiefs going to Lenexa, to me, it just makes a ton of sense. Logistically, I think even with traffic flow, it makes a lot more sense. There's just so much more out there already. You've got the casino next door. You can see all the business tie-ins that can be put together with the massive
just
Chiefs ballpark out there.
so you're not saying Lenexa City Center. You're saying
Yeah, out by the
by the
Legends.
Speedway.
Yeah,
Because
by the Speedway.
there's 2. There's a massive
Yeah,
commercial
there is
development in Lenexa, the city center, just a couple exits further down 435. But yeah, I think the Legends just makes so much sense because the problem, and it amazed me. One of the things that I really just dislike about Arrowhead, and Arrowhead's a great place to watch a game. It is. Getting out of the stadium, it takes literally
It's
hours.
terrible.
It's mind numbing. But it's just as bad at Allegiant Stadium. I couldn't believe it. And it made the news for WrestleMania because the eyes of the country are on it, and it was people traveling from all over the world. So it got more attention than a Raiders regular season game. It literally took 90 minutes to get from outside of Allegiant Stadium to the Mandalay Bay parking lot, and you can see Mandalay Bay as soon as you walk out. It's no longer of a walk than it is walking from Arrowhead Stadium's gate to the end of the parking lot. But everybody in the stadium is ramped down this one highway that they close down the bridge and walk everybody back towards the strip. And it was gridlocked with people. I actually stopped to help a gentleman and his wife. They had a flat tire on their rollerator because the lady had a broken ankle, it looks like, and had one of those rollerators, and the wheel came off. So I stopped and was helping them with their wheel. So they actually had a flat tire on the pedestrian bridge. But it in its own way, it was just as bad as Arrowhead Stadium getting out of, which was mind-boggling. At least the Legends, there's all sorts of roads and highways to get out of there, and they have kind of figured that out with NASCAR. And obviously, you just don't have a home game when there's a NASCAR race, because then you have all the parking in the world. I mean, they have parking for 150,000 cars for NASCAR.
And those cars are lined up for
Not a problem,
days
done.
before that event. So you couldn't even do a
Hmm.
Thursday night game with a Sunday race. It's still too close together with the way NASCAR fans travel for events like
Yeah,
that.
it's 2 weeks a year though. It's no big deal. But I mean, it just makes so much sense, and
Yeah, and even
we
for
are
like
coming up
I
on that.
wonder too. I haven't been able to find this, and I haven't really searched that hard for it. But I'd like to see like a report if they could show zip codes of where the bulk of season ticket holders are. I wouldn't be shocked if majority of the season ticket holders are actually on the Kansas side in that area, and so if that's closer to home for them, they're happier too. So it just feels like a win-win. Jackson County has done nothing to sustain anything around that. I mean, there's nothing over there, and so to
No,
me, like I don't feel like they're
well,
deserving of keeping it. And the way Frank White's been handling it too, I would, if I was the Chiefs and if I was the Royals too, I'd get the heck out of there and go deal with
yeah,
politicians that want us there and are willing to
well,
work with us.
I agree. I think what this shows more than anything is John Sherman really, really, really wants the team to stay in Missouri,
Yeah.
because if he didn't personally care, and somebody told me just a few minutes away in the same metro, hey, we got you. Here's 75% of everything covered. I'm saying yes. So I give him credit for hanging in there and waiting. I know the Royals are getting hammered for being indecisive and taking too long to make a decision, but I think it's because he honestly is trying to do the best thing for the city. And the
Yep, I
city
agree.
is meeting his open hand with a closed fist. And
Yeah,
maybe that's not even fair. It's not necessarily the city. It's
it's
a guy
one
who
or
you
two people.
think he's in the Royals Hall of Fame. You think he would be all for anything to help the Royals, but Frank White seems to be the guy slowing it down more than anybody, which is
Makes no sense.
mind-boggling. No, it really doesn't.
There's gotta be
Now,
more at play that we don't see at the surface level that
yeah,
is
because
driving a lot of that.
it's utterly crazy. Now, you were disparaging to the fine people at Casey's because they do have good pizza, and
Oh,
it's right
Casey's has
there. It's
great
right
pizza.
across the street
Yeah.
from, yeah, right across the street from. So it's not like there's nothing there. There is the Casey's, and there's Taco Bell. And if you go, what, about a half a mile down Blue Ridge, or Blue Ridge Cutoff, there's Dixon's Chili. So there's all sorts of food options. It's just not quite
It's
the
one of
Vegas
the
Strip.
few NFL stadiums that doesn't have a lot of commerce around it, and like you don't need a full on entertainment district. But my wife and I went to Wisconsin a couple years ago, and so we went and saw
Hmm.
Green Bay, and even just the
Yeah.
little bit around Green Bay, it was really cool to see. Hey, okay, you could park, you could walk to the stadium, but even if you weren't at the stadium, like the difference with going to a Chiefs game and going just about anywhere else, if you aren't in the stadium, then you just stay in the parking lot for hours on end. There's nothing to go entertain yourself with
Yeah, there's
around there.
nowhere to go. Yeah.
All these other stadiums at least have, the dozens of bars and like a fan
Hmm.
district around there that you can go and enjoy a good time. So it's a no-brainer. Move to Kansas. Kansas is willing to pay for it. Kansas taxpayers are willing to pay for it. I mean, I don't know as a whole if Kansas taxpayers are willing to pay for it, but
Well,
why
it doesn't
not?
matter. It passed
Yeah.
already. So
Yeah.
yes.
So come on over to the Kansas side and let's just get this done because there's a lot of potential. I mean, they could build a whole new practice facility. I think regardless of what they do, there's going to be a new practice facility on the Kansas side somewhere anyway. It might not be in the same premises as the stadium, but it just makes sense. Come on over and get it done.
Well, they could even do what Sporting Kansas City did, and they have a training facility at Swope Park, and that's
Mhm.
that's where SKC2, the Swope Park Rangers, play. So they have a presence in both states, so they can do something. They can get it worked out. Well, with that, as we're winding down here, we'll get into soccer a little bit more next week as we have Sporting Kansas City still kind of finding the way with their interim coach Kerry Zavagnin. They're 2-2 now under Kerry. They took a tough loss to Cincinnati. Cincinnati is a strong team, so hanging in there 2-1 it was a beautiful goal too. It was a bicycle kick that Cincinnati scored their winning goal on. Not a horrible loss. So they're still kind of hanging in there, but going to be a little bit of a scuffle for the year. And then, surprisingly, the Kansas City Current, after being ranked number 6 in the world among women's soccer clubs, they fell to the North Carolina Courage. They were a little banged up. Michelle Cooper didn't play. Alana Cook didn't play. They get back at it here against the Seattle Reign. So I don't think much really changed. I don't think anybody's terribly
One
concerned
team's
with the
playing really
Current.
good. One team's been
Yeah.
really bad, and it's been the same for a while now.
Yeah, and they lost on an unlucky late goal. So I mean, not a lot you can really take away from that that's going to make you feel too bad at all. They're still in a good position. But we'll get into that. We'll get back with our friends from the Pitch Pod and talk about a little bit of the beautiful game as we head into the heart of their season. And we're coming up on training camp here. It's going to be coming up soon. You got rookie mini camp, then you got mini camp. So we're right around the corner. We're getting into the heart of it now. Let's go ahead and wrap it up here with our champion of the week as we move ahead in this week in Kansas City.
Hey guys, it's your girl Ash by Elegance, and you're watching me on Wrestling Spotlight.
There's the beautiful Lincoln Financial Field behind Ash by Elegance from TNA Wrestling. You can catch out some more of our WrestleMania post coverage on our sister channel, Wrestling Spotlight. Had a chance to kind of break down a little bit of WrestleMania with our friends Sonny the Man Eagle Kane and Chase from Fountain City Pro. That's running on Wrestling Spotlight now. But as we wrap it up here on Sports TV Plus, Keegan, who's your champion of the week in Kansas City sports?
Not a lot from a player perspective has gone on, so I think I just got to go easy here with Bobby Witt Jr. Shout out to his 20-game hit streak, the 8th Royal in franchise history to do that. He is certainly more than capable of breaking Whit Merrifield's streak, who got that a couple years ago. So shout out Bobby Witt Jr. And if I had to go to a second one, then I'd say Drew Waters. He's taken full advantage of the opportunity he's getting. He's looked pretty good at the plate. He has not been striking out a ton just yet. So I'd give him a close second because those are the only two guys that are consistently in the last 10 days doing enough at the plate to get the job done.
That's true, yeah. And Drew Waters has a chance to stick on because they need somebody in the outfield. Well, I'm going to go with an optimistic champion of the week. Chiefs first-round draft pick, Josh Simmons. He could be the answer to the question they've had since Eric Fisher left the left tackle spot. If he answers the left tackle, that makes everything else a lot easier for Brett Veach. Great pickup getting him in the draft. I'm confident his knee will be okay. And I think the Chiefs may have actually got their answer at tackle moving forward, which if they do, that helps everything because kind of hard to play quarterback without a left tackle. And we saw that in the Super Bowl. No disrespect to Joe Tooney, but doesn't exactly have the ability to drop the anchor against the big power rushers.
Yeah. Mahomes has had a different left tackle every Super Bowl he's been in. That's a problem.
Yeah, no, it's not good. So hopefully they've answered that question. They've tried 3 years in a row now. But this time we tried with the first round pick. We tried a third. We tried a second. Now we're trying the first. Wanye, Kingsley, Josh. So let's pull for Josh Simmons, and we'll get to see him here coming up in rookie camp just this week. So we'll be able to talk about it next week here on Sports TV Plus. And Keegan, people that are watching us here, where can they tune in to catch you and Christopher kind of breaking down Kansas City sports?
Yep, you can check us out over on YouTube at KCSA Pod or search KC Sports Authority. You can also listen to us on Spotify. Got a group of 4 or 5 of us over there that we bounce around. So we got KU football talk, KU basketball offseason talk, one of our favorites. Chris and I did a little bit of Royals this week. We're going to break down the Chiefs offseason a little bit more here in the next coming weeks and then kind of go from there. So yeah, hit us up on social media as well at KCSA Pod.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll get back with you here as we get closer to KU making some decisions on their football team because that's coming up relatively soon too. Stay tuned right here to Sports TV Plus for more sports and entertainment. And download that True TV Plus app so you can take us with you wherever you go. Have a great night.